The sky over Zeta 5 was the color of ash. Thick gray clouds hung low over the rocky ground. The colony lights flickered in the distance, small and fragile on the edge of a cold, alien world. Commander Jace Orion stood at the edge of the mining zone. His heavy boots crunched against the gravel. He looked down into the dark entrance of Tunnel 7. The air smelled of metal, oil, and dust. Machines hummed in the background as miners worked deep underground. Jace pulled his black gloves tighter and turned to face the site manager, a short man named Garrus. Garrus looked nervous. His hands shook as he held a data tablet. "They broke into a new chamber yesterday," Garrus said quietly. "The scanners picked up strange life readings. At first, we thought it was a glitch." Jace frowned. "And we lost contact with the team down there about 3 hours ago," Garrus whispered. Jace's heart tightened in his chest. 3 hours was too long. "How many men?" Jace asked. 6, Garrus answered. 2 engineers. For miners. Jace glanced back at the tunnel. It sloped downward into darkness. The lights inside flickered, like something had disturbed the power lines. Jace tapped his communicator. "Lieutenant Vega, meet me at Tunnel 7 with a search team. Full gear. Now." The response came quickly. "Yes, Commander." Jace turned back to Garrus. "Seal the other tunnels. Keep all workers above ground. No one goes back down until I say so." Garrus nodded and hurried off. Minutes later, Lieutenant Vega arrived with 4 soldiers. They wore heavy body armor and carried plasma rifles. Their helmets had small lights on the sides, cutting through the dark. Jace checked his own weapon, a sidearm on his belt. He rarely used it, but something in his gut told him this was different. "Let's move," Jace ordered. They entered the tunnel. The walls were rough stone, carved by mining drills. Cables ran along the ceiling, leading deeper underground. Dust hung in the air, making it hard to breathe. The deeper they went, the quieter it became. The only sound was their footsteps and the hum of their lights. After walking for about 15 minutes, they reached a broken chamber. The walls had been blasted open, revealing a large natural cave beyond. The cave was wet and dark, with strange green slime on the rocks. Jace raised his hand, signaling the team to stop. Something felt wrong. The air was heavy, thick with the smell of rot. They moved forward slowly. Then they saw it. The bodies of the missing miners and engineers lay scattered on the ground. Their suits were torn open. Deep cuts and punctures covered their bodies. Blood had soaked into the dirt. Vega swore under her breath. Jace knelt beside one of the bodies. His jaw tightened. These men had been killed fast and brutally. One of the soldiers checked his scanner. "Commander, I'm picking up movement all around us." Jace stood up and looked deeper into the cave. Strange marks covered the walls. Long, claw-like scratches. And something else, symbols. Patterns that looked almost like writing. That hit him. A wave of pressure in his head, like something was pushing into his mind. Jace grabbed his helmet, wincing in pain. He heard a whisper, soft but clear. "Leave or die." Jace gasped and pulled back. The whisper faded as quickly as it had come. Vega looked at him, concerned. "Sir," Jace shook his head. "We're leaving. Now." The team backed out of the chamber, moving quickly through the tunnel. They didn't stop until they reached the surface. Once outside, Jace ripped off his helmet and took a deep breath. The cold air felt sharp in his lungs. He turned to Vega. "Seal the tunnel. Post guards. No one goes near it." "Yes, Commander," Vega said, her face pale. Jace knew one thing for sure. Something was down there. Something alive. And it had already killed 6 people. As the guards sealed the tunnel behind him, Jace looked up at the gray sky. He felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold air. He didn't know what they had found, but he knew one thing. This was only the beginning. Morning came cold and silent over Zeta 5. The colony streets were quiet. No one spoke much. Fear hung in the air like smoke after a fire. Rumors had already spread. People whispered about missing miners, strange creatures, and sealed tunnels. No one knew the truth, but everyone knew something had gone wrong. Commander Jace Orion stood in the war room, looking at the map of the colony on a large screen. Red marks showed the mining zones. Tunnel 7 now flashed with a warning symbol. Jace rubbed his face with his hand. He hadn't slept. His mind kept going back to the words he had heard in the cave. Leave or die. He could still feel the pressure in his head. Behind him, the door opened with a soft hiss. Governor Marin stepped in, flanked by 2 security officers. She was a tall woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a voice that left no room for argument. "Commander Orion," she said, walking straight toward him. "I want answers. What happened down there?" Jace turned to face her. "We lost 6 people, Governor. Something killed them. Something we don't understand yet." Marin crossed her arms. "I don't need guesses. I need facts. Are we under attack?" Jace took a breath. "Yes, but I don't believe this is an invasion. Not yet. I think we disturbed something living deep underground. It saw us as a threat and defended its territory." Marin's expression tightened. "And what do you suggest we do? Sit and wait for it to attack again?" Jace hesitated. "I suggest we hold the line. Lock down the mining zones. Study the creature. Try to understand what it wants." Marin shook her head. "Unacceptable. Zeta, 5 exists because of mining. If we stop, the colony dies. The Council on Earth will shut us down." Jace leaned forward. "If we don't stop, more people will die. We need time to figure this out before we make it worse." Marin stared at him for a long moment. Then she sighed and rubbed her temples. "You have 12 hours, she said finally. "If you don't have a solution by then, I'm ordering a military strike. I won't risk this colony." Jace nodded, though his stomach felt heavy. 12 hours was not enough time. That evening, Jace stood on the command balcony, looking out over the colony. The outer fence lights blinked steadily in the distance. Soldiers patrolled the walls, their weapons ready. Lieutenant Vega joined him, holding a report tablet. "We've posted guards at every tunnel," she said. "No movements so far." Jace nodded. "Keep them sharp. This isn't over." He looked out toward the dark horizon. His gut told him something was coming. Suddenly, the alarm blared across the colony. "Warning! Perimeter breach detected in Sector 4. Jace and Vega ran toward the command center. The large screen showed flashing red alerts. One of the outer defense towers had gone dark. "Patch into the tower cameras," Jace ordered. The screen switched to a shaky video feed. Shapes moved in the dark, fast and low to the ground. They were hard to see, but Jace could make out long limbs and sharp claws. The scar had come to the surface. Vega's face went pale. "Sir, they're here." Jace grabbed his communicator. "All units to Sector 4. Open fire on anything that moves." Gunfire echoed across the colony walls. Bright plasma shots lit up the night. The scar moved like shadows, leaping and crawling with terrifying speed. Soldiers shouted over the radio, their voices filled with panic. Jace ran to the armory and grabbed his rifle. He turned to Vega. "We hold the line, no matter what." They reached the wall just as a scar leapt over the fence. The creature was bigger than Jace expected, its skin black and hard like stone. Its mouth opened wide, showing sharp teeth. Jace raised his rifle and fired. The plasma shot hit the creature in the chest, knocking it back. More scar poured over the wall. The soldiers fought hard, but the scar kept coming. One soldier was dragged away, screaming. Another was crushed under the weight of a massive clawed limb. Jace felt the pressure in his head again. Another whisper echoed in his mind. "This is your last warning." Jace gritted his teeth and kept firing. His people were dying. The colony was falling apart. The scars suddenly pulled back, slipping into the shadows beyond the wall. The attack stopped as quickly as it had started. Jace stood in the middle of the battlefield, breathing hard. Bodies lay scattered across the ground. Smoke rose from the damaged towers. The colony was silent again, but it was not safe. Vega walked up to him, her voice shaking. "We can't take another hit like that." Jace knew she was right, but something told him the worst was yet to come. Dawn broke over Zeta 5, but brought no comfort. The colony was a mess. Fires had been put out, but smoke still drifted through the air. Soldiers walked the streets in silence, their faces pale and their eyes heavy with fear. Families stayed inside their shelters, waiting for news that never came. Jace stood in the medical bay, staring at the row of injured soldiers. Some were burned, some were bleeding, some just lay still, shaking from shock. The doctors did what they could, but the truth was clear. They were not ready for a war like this. Governor Marin entered the room with 2 security officers. She didn't waste any time. "Commander, your 12 hours are up," she said coldly. "The council demands results." Jace turned to face her. His voice was calm but firm. "You saw what happened last night. If we attack them again, they'll wipe us out. We don't even know how many there are." Marin crossed her arms. "And if we do nothing, they'll come back and finish the job anyway. We can't sit here and wait to die." Jace took a breath. He had been thinking about this all night. There had to be another way. "I felt something in my head again during the attack," Jace said. "A message. A warning. They don't want to kill us. They just want us gone." Marin frowned. "And how do you plan to speak with monsters?" Jace pulled a small device from his belt. It was a psychic amplifier, an experimental tool designed to boost mental signals. It had never been tested on alien life before, but it was the only chance they had. "I'm going to try to communicate with their leader," Jace said. "I need more time." Marin shook her head. "Time we don't have. You had your chance, Commander. The strike begins tonight." Jace felt a wave of frustration rise in his chest. He knew this was a mistake, but Marin had made up her mind. Later that day, Jace stood in the command center with Lieutenant Vega. He showed her the psychic device. "I have to try," Jace said quietly. "If there's any chance we can stop this without more bloodshed, I have to take it." Vega nodded. "You're risking a court-martial." Jace looked her in the eyes. "I don't care. I won't let this colony burn if I can stop it." Vega grabbed a rifle and slung it over her shoulder. "Then you're not going alone." Jace gave her a small, grateful nod. They left the command center together and made their way to the sealed entrance of Tunnel 7. The tunnel was quiet when they entered. The air was cold and still. Jace switched on the psychic amplifier and held it close to his chest. He closed his eyes and focused. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, the pressure returned. Stronger this time. Jace winced as his mind filled with images. He saw dark tunnels stretching for miles. He saw the scar moving through the earth like a living storm. And then he saw it, their leader. The image was blurry, but Jace could sense its power. A giant scar with glowing eyes. A mind far more advanced than he had expected. It spoke without words, filling his mind with thoughts and feelings. "You broke the peace. You killed the queen. You must leave or die." Jace tried to push his own thoughts back through the amplifier. He pictured the colony. He pictured his people. He sent a message of peace, of understanding. But the answer came back like a hammer. "You are invaders. You killed what cannot be replaced. There is no peace." Jace opened his eyes, gasping for breath. The connection broke. The amplifier shorted out in his hands, smoking from the overload. Vega caught him before he fell. "What happened?" she asked. Jace looked at her, his face pale. "They lost their queen," he whispered. "We killed her when we broke into that chamber. That's why they're attacking. They're defending their home." Vega swallowed hard. "Can we fix this?" Jace shook his head slowly. "I don't know." Suddenly, the ground shook beneath their feet. Dust fell from the ceiling. The sound of distant roars filled the air. Vega's eyes widened. "They're coming again." Jace stood up, his heart pounding. He knew the colony would not survive another attack. And this time, there would be no warnings. The colony prepared for war. Heavy weapons were moved to the walls. Extra power cells were loaded into defense turrets. Every soldier was armed and ready. Fear hung thick in the air like smoke after a fire. The people of Zeta 5 knew another attack was coming, and this time would be worse. Commander Jace Orion stood in the center of the war room, staring at the battle plans on the large screen. His stomach felt heavy. The psychic amplifier lay broken on the table beside him. It had given him one last message before burning out. "No peace. You killed the queen. You must leave or die." Jace knew they couldn't leave. The colony needed the energy from Zeta 5 to survive. Earth needed it too, but staying meant more blood, more death. The door behind him opened. Governor Marin entered again, looking cold and determined. "The council has approved the strike," she said. "We go in full force tonight." Jace turned to face her. "It won't work." Marin raised her eyebrow. "You have something better?" Jace nodded slowly. "I spoke to them. They believe we killed their queen when we broke through the tunnels. That's why they're fighting. Marin crossed her arms. So what? You want me to apologize to monsters? Jace took a deep breath. We can offer a deal. We seal the mines. We leave their nesting ground alone. We set clear borders. It might stop this. Marin laughed, but there was no humor in her voice. That's not a deal. That's surrender. Jace's jaw tightened. It's survival. Marin leaned in closer. We can't give up the mines. Earth depends on us. If we stop, the colony dies anyway. Jace looked down at the table. He knew she was right, but his gut told him if they attacked, it would be the end of everything. I'm giving you one last order, Marin said. Lead the strike, or I'll find someone who will. Jace said nothing. He knew what was coming. He had no choice now. That night, the colony's army gathered at the edge of the mining zone. Lights glowed in the darkness. Soldiers stood in rows, gripping their weapons tightly. Jace walked through the ranks, his face like stone. Lieutenant Vega joined him, checking her rifle. We're ready, she asked. Jace nodded. We're ready. But deep down, he felt the weight of every life standing before him. These were his people. He had trained them, led them, and now he was sending them into a fight they might not win. The command signal came through his earpiece. Strike teams, move out. Jace raised his fist, signaling the advance. The soldiers moved forward, heading toward Tunnel 7. Massive explosives were rolled into place to blast the hive wide open. Inside the tunnel, the air felt thicker than before. Jace could feel the pressure building in his head again. The same dark voice filled his mind. You have chosen death. Jace tried to push the voice away, but it grew louder. Images filled his mind. Images of Earth burning, colonies falling, and humanity wiped from the stars. He stumbled, gripping the wall for support. Vega grabbed his arm. Commander, she shouted. Are you all right? Jace nodded weakly. Keep moving. The soldiers reached the chamber. The explosives were set. Jace gave the final order. Detonate. The blast rocked the ground. Stone and dust filled the air as the chamber wall collapsed, revealing a deeper part of the hive. And then they came. The scar poured out of the darkness. Hundreds of them, bigger and faster than before. They charged like a living wave, claws flashing, jaws snapping. The soldiers opened fire. Plasma bolts lit up the cave. The sound of battle filled the tunnels, screams, gunfire, and the roar of the scar. Jace fought alongside his team, but the scar kept coming. Every time one fell, two more took its place. Vega shouted over the noise. We can't hold them. Jace knew she was right. This wasn't a battle. It was a slaughter. He grabbed his communicator. Fall back. All units fall back now. The soldiers started pulling back, but the scar pressed harder. Jace knew they wouldn't make it out alive unless he did something. He looked at Vega. I'm going in. Vega's eyes widened. What? You won't make it. Jace shook his head. If I can reach their leader, I can end this. Cover me. Before Vega could stop him, Jace ran toward the hive, deeper into the darkness. Plasma fire lit the walls behind him. The ground shook as the scar chased after the retreating soldiers. Jace pushed forward, deeper and deeper, until he reached the heart of the hive. There, waiting for him, was Skarnax. The creature was massive, its body glowing faintly with energy. Its eyes locked onto Jace, and once again, the voice filled his mind. Why do you come here alone, human? Jace dropped his weapon and raised his hands. I came to stop this. No more killing. Skarnax moved closer. Its sharp limbs scraped against the stone floor. You killed our queen. You brought death. You must pay. Jace took a step forward. We made a mistake. But I can end this. We can seal the tunnels. We can leave you in peace. Skarnax tilted its massive head. The air grew colder. Why should we trust you? Jace's heart pounded. He knew the next words would decide everything. Because if you don't, Jace said quietly, we'll both lose everything. Skarnax stared at him in silence. The ground trembled again, as if the hive itself was thinking. Jace stood in the heart of the hive, facing Skarnax. His hands were raised, empty, showing he meant no harm. He felt his throat tighten. His heart pounded in his chest. Skarnax leaned closer. Its glowing eyes locked onto him. You say you want peace, but your people bring death. Jace forced himself to stand firm. His voice was steady, but inside he felt fear pressing down on him. "We didn't know," Jace said. "We broke into your home by mistake. We thought it was empty. We didn't know we killed your queen. Let us fix this. Let us seal the tunnels. Let us protect what is left." For a long moment, Skarnax did not answer. The hive was alive with sound. Jace could hear the deep breathing of hundreds of Scar in the dark. He knew they could kill him in seconds. But he didn't move. He didn't run. Skarnax's voice filled his mind again, cold and sharp. "We have heard enough words. Now you will hear ours." The ground shook violently. Cracks split open in the walls. Black shapes moved fast from every direction. The Scars swarmed past Skarnax, charging toward the colony. Jace's heart sank. "No," he whispered. Skarnax let out a deep growl that echoed through the chamber. "You had your chance, human. Now you will face the end." Jace turned and ran. He raced through the tunnels, slipping on loose rock. His lungs burned as he pushed himself forward. He heard roars behind him. The Scar were moving fast. Jace activated his communicator. His voice came out as a desperate shout. "Vega, they're coming. Evacuate the colony. Now." Back at the colony wall, Vega heard the message. She looked at the soldiers around her. Their faces were already pale with fear. The ground was shaking. The air felt heavy. "They're coming," she shouted. "Fall back. Get the civilians to the shelters. Move." The soldiers ran toward the housing blocks, guiding families into the underground shelters. Parents held their children close. People screamed and pushed to get inside. The alarms screamed through the air. "Evacuate. All civilians to shelters now." Jace burst out of the tunnel just as the first wave of Scar hit the outer walls. The creatures smashed through the gates like they were paper. Defense turrets opened fire, but there were too many. The battle exploded all around them. Jace grabbed a fallen rifle and started firing. Plasma bolts lit up the night, but the Scar kept coming. Their claws tore through metal. Their jaws crushed armor. Soldiers screamed as they were dragged into the dark. Jace fought his way to Vega's position. "Fall back to the command center," he yelled. Vega nodded and waved her team back. They ran through the broken streets, firing as they moved. Scar chased them, climbing over buildings and crashing through walls. Jace and Vega reached the command building. Soldiers sealed the doors behind them. The colony's power flickered. Lights went dark. Inside, people huddled together, shaking and crying. The command screens showed red alerts flashing everywhere. The Scar had broken through every line. Vega turned to Jace, breathing hard. "We can't stop them." Jace knew she was right. His chest felt like it was caving in. Everything they had built was falling apart. Suddenly, Jace's communicator buzzed. It was Marin. "Orion, get to the landing pads. The evacuation ships are ready. We're leaving Zeta 5. Jace clenched his jaw. "What about the people still in the shelters?" Marin's voice cracked with fear. "We can't save them all. We don't have time. Get to the ships." Jace looked around. The people in the command center were counting on him. He couldn't leave them behind. "No," Jace said firmly. "We stay. We fight." Vega grabbed his shoulder. "Commander, if we stay, we die." Jace looked her in the eyes. "If we leave them, we lose who we are." Vega stared at him for a long second, then nodded slowly. She raised her rifle. "Then we fight." The Scar smashed into the command building. The walls cracked. The doors bent under the weight of their claws. The soldiers took position, ready for one last stand. Jace stood at the front. He knew this was it. He raised his rifle. "Hold the line," he shouted. The walls gave way. The Scar poured in, and the final battle began. The Scar broke through the walls of the command building like a flood. Their claws ripped through steel. Their screeches echoed in the air. Jace Orion fired until his rifle overheated. Soldiers around him fell one by one. Sparks flew from the broken lights above. He grabbed Vega and pulled her back behind a barricade. They were surrounded. There was no way out. Vega's face was pale. Blood ran down her arm, but she kept firing. "We're not going to make it," she shouted over the chaos. Jace looked around. There were civilians behind them, huddled on the floor. Children, families, people who had trusted him to protect them. He knew they couldn't hold the Scar back any longer. Jace reached down and pulled out a small backup psychic amplifier. It was a weaker version, but still worked. He looked at Vega. "I'm ending this now," he said. Vega grabbed his arm. "Jace, they'll kill you." He nodded. "If I don't try, they'll kill us all." Without waiting for permission, Jace stood up, dropped his rifle, and held the device tightly. "Stop!" he shouted with everything he had. The Scar paused for a brief second. Their glowing eyes locked on him. Jace took a slow step forward, holding the amplifier high. He tuned it in his mind, searching for the signal. He pushed his thoughts out into the swarm. "Take me to Skarnax. Take me to your leader. I come alone." The Scar hissed and growled, but they didn't attack. Slowly, they stepped aside, leaving a narrow path through the broken wall. Vega grabbed his arm again. "You don't have to do this." Jace turned to her, forcing a weak smile. "Yes, I do." He walked down the path, feeling every set of alien eyes watching him. The Scar led him through the colony ruins, back toward the tunnels. Jace walked with heavy steps, his legs shaking. They entered the hive once again. The air felt colder now. He heard deep breathing all around him, thousands of Scar waiting in the dark. And then Skarnax appeared. The massive creature stepped out of the shadows. Its body glowed faintly, its sharp limbs clicking on the stone floor. Jace felt the voice in his mind once more. "Why do you return, human? You have brought nothing but death." Jace stood firm. His voice shook, but he spoke clearly. "I came to offer myself. And me, but let the colony go. Let the people live." The hive went silent. Skarnax leaned closer, studying him. "You would give your life for them?" Jace nodded. "Yes." Skarnax tilted its head. "Why? You're soldiers. You do not value peace." Jace swallowed hard. "You're wrong. We do. We didn't know we had killed your queen. We didn't know this was your home. But I know now. Take my life if you must. Just let the others go." The silence stretched. Jace felt his heart pounding in his ears. He was ready to die. He had already made peace with that. Then Skarnax spoke again, but this time the voice sounded softer, curious. "You would protect your hive the way we protect ours." Jace nodded again. "Yes. We're not so different." Skarnax stared at him for a long time. Then, slowly, it lowered its massive head. "We do not want war. We want our queen back. We want to live in peace." Jace felt a flicker of hope. "We can seal the tunnels. We can leave your land untouched. You will be safe. We will stay away." Skarnax let out a low hum. The ground stopped shaking. The Scar in the walls grew quiet. "Then go. Seal the ground. Leave us in peace, and we will leave you in peace." Jace let out a shaky breath. He couldn't believe it. "Thank you," he whispered. Skarnax raised its head one last time. "Go now, human, and keep your promise." Jace turned and walked back to the colony. He expected to hear more roars or claws behind him, but none came. When he reached the command building, Vega ran to him. "What happened?" Jace leaned against the wall, exhausted. His voice was rough but steady. "They've agreed to stop if we leave their home alone." Vega stared at him in shock. "It's over." Jace nodded slowly. "It's over." The colony sealed the tunnels the next day. No one was allowed near the mining zone again. Heavy walls were built around the area, marked with warnings. The Scar never attacked again. Jace stood on the edge of the sealed ground, looking out at the dark hills beyond. He knew the colony would survive, but it would never be the same. He turned to Vega. "We were lucky this time." Vega nodded. "Let's hope we don't push our luck again." Jace looked out at the land one last time, feeling the weight of all they had lost and all they had saved. The days that followed felt strange. The alarms were silent. The streets were calm. The people of Zeta 5, shaken but alive, slowly came out of hiding. Families gathered in the open again. Soldiers lowered their weapons. Workers repaired the walls and buildings. The colony had survived, but something had changed. The mining operations were shut down for good. Giant steel barriers were built around the tunnels. No one was allowed near them. Armed guards stood watch, not to fight, but to make sure no one crossed the line again. Commander Jace Orion stood by the barrier, watching the final piece slide into place. The seal was complete. The hive below would be left in peace. Vega walked up beside him. She had a bandage on her arm and dark circles under her eyes, but she was standing strong. "It's done," she said quietly. Jace nodded. Yeah. They stood there in silence for a moment. The wind howled softly across the rocky ground. What now? Vega asked. Jace looked out at the dark hills beyond the colony. He knew the answer, though it felt heavier than he liked to admit. Now, we learn to live with what we did. We build again. But this time, we don't make the same mistakes. Vega crossed her arms. You think the scar will really leave us alone? Jace nodded slowly. As long as we leave them alone, they will. He knew the peace was fragile. One wrong move, and the war could start again. But for now, the fighting was over. Later, Jace met with Governor Marin in the main hall. She looked tired but alive. You saved the colony, she said, her voice softer than usual. Jace shook his head. No, I just stopped us from losing everything. Marin stood up and walked to the window. She looked out over the colony. People were working again. Children were playing in the streets. Life was returning. I sent a report to Earth, she said. I told them the mines are off limits. The council won't like it. Jace sighed. Let them be angry. This land doesn't belong to us. Marin nodded. I suppose you're right. For the first time since they had met, she sounded like she actually meant it. Weeks passed. The colony started to rebuild. People worked together, fixing homes, planting new crops, and repairing power lines. The fear of another attack never fully left them, but they learned to live with it. Jace watched it all quietly. He knew the cost had been high, but he also knew they had been given a second chance. One evening, he walked alone to the edge of the barrier. He stood there, looking out at the sealed land. He didn't hear the scar. He didn't feel the pressure in his head anymore. But deep down, he knew they were still there, watching, waiting. And that was enough. He turned and walked back toward the colony, ready to lead his people into a future that would never forget what had happened beneath their feet. The wind carried the last echoes of war away into the dark, and peace, though fragile, held.